Excerpts from Ancient Forest of the Pacific Northwest by Elliott A. Norse. This is from the chapter on northern spotted owls. It's a contributing essay by David Wilkove. When Euro-Americans spread across the United States, they systematically killed the large predators. Grizzly bears, cougars, and timber wolves were eliminated in most of their former ranges. Now that the species whose teeth we fear are gone, the new ones in greatest peril are those whose homes we crave. No species better illustrates this than the northern spotted owl, a species in jeopardy because it lives in ancient forests. 2 decades ago, the spotted owl was one of the least known, least studied birds in North America. Today, it is the subject of intensive study, rancorous debate, and legal battles. This sudden notoriety stems from the owl's specialized habitat requirements in the western portion of its range, where it inhabits old-growth conifer forests. Because old-growth forests on private lands are essentially gone, almost all of the remaining habitat for the spotted owl in the Pacific Northwest is on federal lands. National forests, for example, account for about 68% of the remaining habitat. BLM lands in Oregon add another 15%, while national parks account for less than 10%. Both the Forest Service and the BLM are in the process of deciding how much old-growth forest to set aside for the owl, and what they decide will in all likelihood determine the owl's fate. The process has been a painful and controversial one. More than any other species, the spotted owl has become a symbol of the ancient forest, a convenient focal point for the energies and passions of conservationists and loggers alike. It is an almost comical situation, all this attention, all this fury, directed towards a fluffy 22-ounce bird that likes to spend its days napping and its nights in silent pursuit of rodents scurrying about the forest floor. Until recently, virtually nothing was known about the ecology of the spotted owl in the Pacific Northwest. A typical account in a field guide might read something like this: rare, little known, inhabits forests. Studies in the 1970s by Eric Forsman and colleagues in Oregon and Gordon Good in California and others showed the owl to be more widespread than previously believed, but they also revealed its strong affinity for ancient forests. For example, 95.5% of the sites in Oregon where spotted owls were found between 1969 and 1984 were dominated by old-growth forests or mixed stands of old-growth and mature forests. Exactly why spotted owls are so closely tied to old growth is unclear. Several factors are probably involved. First, spotted owls in the Pacific Northwest nest in large, live trees with cavities, broken tops, dwarf mistletoe, or platforms of branches capable of holding organic matter suitable to use for a nest. The sorts of trees one can find in an ancient forest, but not in younger stands. First, spotted owls in the Pacific Northwest nest in large live trees with cavities, broken tops, or platforms of branches capable of holding organic matter suitable to use as nests. The sort of trees that we find in ancient forests, but not in younger stands. Second, the prey of spotted owls, mostly small mammals such as flying squirrels, tree voles, and wood rats, may be more abundant in old growth than in younger stands. Third, spotted owls like Roosevelt elk or black-tailed deer use old-growth stands for thermal cover. And fourth, ancient forests may provide safety from the spotted owl's predator, such as the great horned owl, which often occur in young stands or along the edges of clear cuts. Not only do spotted owls need old growth, they need lots of it. For example, studies in Northwest California showed spotted owls using about 1,900 acres of old growth per pair. 6 pairs in Oregon had an average of 2,226 acres of old growth per home range. Some of these birds were studied for only 3 to 4 months. Had they been studied for longer periods of time, their home ranges probably would have increased in size and included larger amounts of old growth. 6 pairs of owls studied in Washington used about 3,800 acres of old growth per pair. Although not all of this old growth was in one place. During the winter, the Washington owls moved to different forest tracts. Additional data on other pairs collected within the last few years confirm these approximate values. Thus, the evidence to date suggests a north-south gradient in the amount of old growth used per pair of owls. No one really knows why such a gradient exists. Critics who ceaselessly argue that more research is needed before any management decisions are made should spend a year or two tracking these nocturnal birds across the rugged terrain of the Northwest. They should also note that further studies have tended to confirm or enlarge the amount of habitat we understand to be necessary for a pair of owls. Logging of ancient forest is without question the biggest threat to the survival of spotted owl. Only a small fraction of the original old growth remains. Also, the remaining old growth forests are heavily fragmented and now occur in a patchwork of old growth and clear cuts of various ages. Besides the obvious problems of habitat loss and fragmentation, what is the evidence that spotted owls are in trouble? The answer lies in the extensive data that has been gathered on the demography of this species. Most individuals do not breed until they are 3 years old. A surprisingly late start for this medium-sized owl. Reproduction by spotted owls also appear to fluctuate dramatically and unpredictably from year to year. In some years, most pairs in a given area will breed, while in other years, few even attempt to nest. Some researchers have suggested that this variation in breeding success is due to fluctuations in prey abundance, but this is only a hypothesis. How then do we interpret the events in the state of Washington where the majority of spotted owls have not had a successful breeding season since 1983? Is this part of a normal cycle? Or is it evidence of a chronic decline caused by loss of habitat? As the controversy grows, it is worth remembering what the spotted owl is and isn't. It is just one species in the constellation of plants, animals, fungi, and bacteria that inhabit the ancient forests. And in an ecological sense, it may be no more important than any of these other species. But because spotted owls require so much old growth, protecting them will mean de facto protection for many other species with smaller area requirements. In this respect, the spotted owl is quite special, and based on what we know, it is the most critically endangered species of the ancient forests.